Hello, fermented folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to our featured author of the month this beautiful February. We have a very special treat for you. We have Michael A. Jacobs, author of sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and lots of things all together. And kind of blending all those genres together is Michael out there doing it in a very unique fashion. So, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show, being here with us today, with me, Clay Vermolum, and my co-host, Travis Vermolum.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it is our pleasure. How is 2023 treating you so far, Michael?
Pretty good. I got one novel out for the month, so I'm for the year. Sorry, my goal is to get 5 out this year. So,
wow,
yeah.
Jeez, Louise, why you got to make the rest of us look bad? I released one novella out here.
Them some Sanderson numbers right there.
Seriously. What is your newest novel? I didn't see it on your website as I was perusing today.
Yes, because it's not on there just yet. It's going to release on the 20th. It is book 5 of my core series.
Nice. The core series. That you're killing it with that thing.
Yeah. So one more to go for that one. So I'll start writing book 6. Maybe March, April, something like that.
Speaking of opening with that, just if I want to get 5 novels out this year, I want to ask the first question: like, what are some of your writing strategies you employ to accomplish that amount of work done? Because I think a lot of people might want to break out a notebook when they hear this first question.
Well, my first thing when people ask me that is to don't do what I do because it's a little crazy. So I used to only get 3 hours of sleep because I was just cranking out things, and now I've slowed down. So I get 6 hours of sleep now.
All right.
No, I don't know if you've ever heard of NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, every November. Yeah, that's pretty much something that I do on a yearly basis, every month, pretty much. So November is kind of like piece of cake. Yes, I can write a novel in 30 days if I put my mind to it. Sometimes I stretch it out to 60 or 90, depending on the project. So, yeah, my goal is to always try to get about 2,000 words a day.
Wow. Okay. 2,000 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great pace to set. So that's probably for your rough draft, I assume.
Yes.
As you've grown as an author and released more and more things, how have you managed to refine your editing process to speed that up and to make it more efficient? What kind of tactics do you employ for that?
I still, to this day, I still just dump it all out. And then from there, and when I dump out, I write kind of bare bones. So there's not much scenery. There's probably no character names, descriptions, things of that nature. So I'm just dumping out all just the raw stuff. And then when I edit, I'm actually not really editing. I'm just refining sentences and adding all the description stuff in. So my rough draft could be 60K, and when I'm done with it, it's like 84K. So. But then it's got better sentences, and it's got all the descriptions and stuff in there. So, yeah.
I haven't heard of it really happening very often when I've talked to other people who write, but I like that method of going in and kind of refining the specific details of everything. Like, I can see that working well for fantasy specifically. You have vast open worlds and many named characters, and just going in and being like, right now this person is just Travis, and then later it's gonna be
yeah, that mountain over there, yeah, sure, it's in the north somewhere.
It's a mountain. It looks vaguely like a triangle. You get it. But we're moving on.
Yes, pretty much.
That's awesome. So do you Do you do much world building up front? I don't mean like in the story because you've just elaborated on that, but do you have like for the core series, for example, you've got 5 galaxies going on, right? So like did you kind of outline all that or build all that, or did you do that in the same fashion where you wrote the story and the world sort of built itself from there?
It kind of sort of builds itself from there. Every now and then I'll have a vivid image of what that world looks like. And then I can just like, oh, okay. And then I'll tweak it from there. But a lot of times, depending on how the characters are interacting in their environment, I kind of build it from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know I have a weird way my brain works.
I'm visualizing almost like a dungeon crawl video game where like you see the immediate space around you, and then like as you go into the next room, the lights like turn on and
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. As you enter each room, it's kind of like, yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Thank you.
Yes. So you're out there doing the indie author thing. Yes. I was wondering, did you always want to be an indie author? If so, why? And if not, what led you away from the traditional publishing path? What encouraged you to go out and do it on your own?
Well, yeah, I've been writing since I was 12, and I've always thought I'm going to get traditionally published. I just always thought that was going to be how I got in. Mm-hmm. And when I started looking into that, like seriously going into publishing, I was getting the same kind of feedback. I was like, oh my God, we love it, but we don't know how to market it. Well, maybe if you took out this genre, and just made it this. And I was like, well, no, that takes away from the story. So I was getting a lot of feedback. I was like, oh, we love it, but we don't know really what to do with it. And so I was like, oh, okay. And then the Northwest Independent Writers Association, I got in touch with them, and they're like, oh, you can just self-publish. And I was like, wait, what? And so I started researching that, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of work. Actually, it's more work. But I was like, you know what? Mm-hmm. I went to film school. I can do this. So yeah, I know how to use Photoshop and all that good stuff. And that's how I did. I learned how to format on Adobe InDesign and all that good stuff. And did my first cover. It was terrible.
Which cover was it? Will you tell us?
I've got a box of them in storage somewhere. Yeah, a few people do have those first editions, and I apologize profusely. And I was like, I'm so sorry that you have that. And they're like, no, it's great, But yeah, I went and I got a different editor and got it redone. And now the series you see now, that was the core series. That was my first. Yeah. This one was not good. When it first came out, it was not good.
You ever have somebody come up to you for to get it signed, and you just hand them a new one? Like, listen, that thing you're carrying around, that gots to go.
I did it. I was just like, don't you want the newer version? I got it here. I'll just give it to you, please. And, yeah. They'll take it, of course. And there's like, oh, cool. Now I got 2. It was like 2 signed, because I'll sign the old one as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's kind of jarring when you see the one that you hope someone had buried come out. Yeah.
Yeah. Freshman jitters a little bit. It's hard once you release those things into the world. There's no taking it back.
Nope.
Nope.
You talk about, so there's the writing, the editing, the cover design. I'm sure with independent, it's kind of like the marketing yourself. Is there, other than getting the story out, which I'm sure is your favorite part, but other than that, is there a favorite part of the independent publishing process?
I'm one of those weird people. I love laying out the print copy. I'm one of those weird people who likes formatting.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm not a writer, right? My brother's a writer. I'm the reader.
Uh-huh.
Could you, what does that process look like? Because I'm curious.
So the print version, I mean, you have to lay out how each page looks. You have to, you're putting in the headers, the footers, the page numbers, things like that. You want to make sure all the words are in the box. There's nothing going astray outside of them, and there's no weird like word widows, like one word on a line, things like that. And a lot of fixing of kerning is what they call it. And making sure that all the spaces work and there's no weird like river spaces between words and paragraphs. So yeah, I go in there and I lay out my book and tweak it until it looks good.
That is fascinating, because as a reader, like I just take those things for granted, and sometimes even complain like, "Oh, this looks terrible! Like, how can a publisher like I don't think the work that goes into it?" I'm just like, "Oh, give me my perfect copy now."
Yeah, we get that a lot.
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I actually have people like, I was like, "Wow, this format is really good. Who did it?" It's like me.
nice. That's how you get 3 hours of sleep a night, I imagine. Probably
Sorta.
contributes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, asking for a friend, if there are any good classes out there that teach you how to format your own books a little better? Totally, just for a friend,
I think there's a few of them that I've seen out there, but I don't click them. I don't go into them because I went to film school and I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see that I do see a couple, not many, but there's a few that was like, oh, this is how you format. And of course the warning before any of them, actually almost all of them, is like, if you want to learn how to format with, like, say, like InDesign or oh gosh, what's the other one? There's another one, and there's like it's got a steep learning curve. So if you don't want to spend like, I don't know, months learning how to use these, formatting applications and the different softwares, it's like, just hire a formatter.
Yeah.
Or use Vellum, plug it in there, it's done, So, yeah, but I'm old school, and I just do it the old school, like, professional way. Like, if you went to a professional, like, formatter, most of the time they're using the same program I am, because you're fixing all the different spaces, all the different lines. So it's a lot more intensive than if you just got Vellum and plugged it in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't actually used Vellum before. For my book, I did just hire a formatter because I didn't really want to risk it on my first book. But, as I'm coming up on publishing a few more, I'm like, well, I can't drop all that money every time, so I kind of got to learn a few things. But yeah, if you hear of any resources, my friend would love to have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will keep a lookout.
Thanks. So pivoting from that, I mean, transitioning more, because as you said, you grew up wanting to be indie or traditionally published. I think most of us probably did. Most of us have probably read stories from like Stephen King and such. I know you're a fellow King fan. Of the journey to traditional publishing, how grueling and taxing that can be. But, we all want to tread it anyway. We all want to think we can overcome it. But luckily, we're in this age of indie publishing where you can do the work yourself. And if you have a good story, like, you'll be able to find your audience and you'll be able to get out there. And I think we're really fortunate to live in this time of amplifying, otherwise unheard voices. And that includes marginalized communities. So I'd like to talk to you specifically as a Black female author. Can you give some advice, some encouragement, some words of wisdom to other writers out there in similar situations, similar communities who might need some help finding their feet in the writing world?
It's pretty simple, write what you love. There's a level of fear and you have to get over that because I had it for a long time. I didn't write for 8 years because I was just like, no one's gonna, because I write sci-fi, and unfortunately, in the sci-fi field, there's not many women of color in that genre, and this is partly why I write under Maquel A. Jacob, because people think I'm a middle-aged white guy. which sounds terrible, but it's like, it's just another regular sci-fi author, and and then there's the flip side where, as a person of color, it's assumed that I should be writing. All my main characters should be a person of color, and I don't think that's true, and we hear that a lot. All of us who are in the marginalized, field, we just kind of like, oh, if you're this particular, group, you should be writing for that and not anything else. And I just kind of, no, I write for everybody. My main characters fluctuate. It doesn't. A good story is a good story. It doesn't matter if it's, if you as the author is a person of color or a marginalized group, just write a good story. It doesn't matter if the main character is, the same as you or not. It just, I find that it disturbs me when I see it and when I hear it. And it's just, And at the same time, it's that fear is like, oh, I'm a person of color, and if I don't write, a story that doesn't have a person of color, I'm going to get, ostracized. I'm going to, no one's going to read my stuff because it's like, oh, she's, or, she's like and I've heard this, and this is going to sound awful. It's like, you're a traitor to your race if you're not writing of your same group. Yeah. That was actually said to me.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that really sucks, because you're not only you're already ostracized enough, right? And then being ostracized by a group that should kind of have your back, that definitely does not make it an easier fight to fight.
Yeah.
I found it interesting too. You talk about the name change and like that being a selling point, and how long that's been happening. Because I'm thinking of The Outsiders by what was her name?
Oh, good Lord.
Hinton, I think that's Hinton. And then N.K. Jemisin, our friend we had on the show a couple months ago, S.K. Ira, kind of had a similar thing. She used a abbreviated name to just sell better, and writes from the perspective of a male military background person. And maybe you can speak to this more. Like, when you talk to her about this, she just said, when I did that, I just knew that I had to give that point of view the respect it deserved. So yeah, maybe I'm not a male and I'm not a military background person, but to write from that point of view, I had to just dive in and respectfully take that route down the story.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Cause a lot of my series are from a male perspective, and I feel comfortable and confident in writing because I grew up with basically mostly boys. I didn't have any female friends, so I had the same mindset as my friends who are guys, or my cousins, because all my cousins are pretty much. I have all like boy cousins. I have a few female cousins, and so that's how I grew up. And so I couldn't relate to other girls or other women because they would say things that's kind of like, well, that's silly. And it's like, well, you should be on our side. You're a woman too. And I'm just like, no, not exactly. Not if it's dumb.
Not if your side is the dumb side. Not going to be on that side.
So I just kind of, and it was to my advantage writing sci-fi because sci-fi is more so male dominated. And I was like, cool, and I did a little bit of a stint in the military, so I have a little bit of insight, and most of my friends and coworkers are in the military, and they give me all the info I need if I need it. So so I'm with her. Yeah, you just kind of have to do what you got to do, but at the same time, write a story that you love.
If
that's the most important thing at the end of the day, is the heart of the story, and that you actually care about it. Because if you care about it, you will do what SK said and give it the time it deserves. And I think in a lot of ways, I've noticed in your short stories, I read your short story collection. There's a lot of ambiguity. Yeah. There's some really good ones in there. There's a lot of ambiguity in race, gender, and from the descriptions of your series, I imagine that transcends into those novels as well. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I always had this thing in my head where, what if it didn't matter? What if our biology was not what it is now? What if you could just, decide if you're born female, but at the same time you're like, you know what? I just want to be a boy today. And you shift physically to a boy or a male, and just, and so it cancels out all those conversations of, oh, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. Yeah, well, I do. You don't like to be a man. And it's like, yeah, I do. So it eliminates all that. And then there's just the stigma of everything just kind of goes away, and then the whole ethnicity, it's kind of like we're all one race anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We're all human beings, we're not, we're not coyotes, we're not elephants, we're bipedal beings. So it's weird. Like I actually have a character in, it is in the Curse series, and he's German. He's black. He's got blonde hair. He wears cornrows. He's got these beautiful, like, gray eyes. and some people have said, it was like, well, that's kind of jarring. And I was like, well, why? Why is that jarring to you? So I like to throw things in there like that.
I think that's awesome. And plus, if you are bothered by that, then that's really more your problem than the writer's problem, Yeah. That's my opinion.
It expresses too the beauty of the creative arts, because I think people often, like, that I've heard, because I got my background in religious studies and such, and you hear a lot like, oh, how do we prove this? And it's like, you don't have to prove it. You have to exercise it as a possibility. And I think that's what creative arts does. Like, I don't know what this would be like, but I can at least think about it. I can at least imagine it, because I am a logical being. And like, what if this kind of person did exist right now? Here's how that would probably go. And I think that's, you're encompassing something that's beautiful about the creative arts. Is we can ask those what if questions without it having to be like a exactly
right.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you try to put creativity in too many boxes, aren't you kind of defeating the purpose? I mean, that's why that's the beauty of fantasy and sci-fi, especially. Like, if it doesn't have to take place in our world, you're making up the world, so you can make it up however you want. Like, we talked to Travis Baldry a couple months back, and he had a great answer to that question. He has a homosexual relationship in his story, Legends and Lattes, and somebody, of course, asked him about that. And his answer was I just wrote a world where that wasn't even something people cared about or thought about, where it was it's a relationship. Carry on, And it was like, that's how it should be. Like, we shouldn't have to fight this damn hard to love the people we love. This stupid thing the society has tricked us into doing. But yeah, so I commend you for taking those risks and those leaps and overcoming that adversity. Well done, and thank you for doing it. It's awesome.
It is my pleasure.
So when I met you, Michael, you were at Cascade Writers. Thank you, Cascade Writers. Shout out for letting us do this show.
Definitely. Yes.
Thank you, Cascade Writers. Are you? We talked there, but you were there to present your panel about conventions. So I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that here on the show, because that's another aspect of the indie community that I think, it's another one of those things like trad publishing that I think we all dream of, right? We all dream of like doing the panels and being at the table and having the fans come up with the book. We all want that. And at this point, you've gotten to live that dream a little bit and probably seen the parts of it that are very much not so dreamy. So could you tell us a bit about what that looks like from a practical standpoint, from a work standpoint? And then, if you have any tips and tricks that you could give to our listeners here who might want to be doing the same thing.
Conventions are fun. Well, they can be fun, if they're ran right. I used to do so many. I think my second year of publishing, I got with a group and they were like, we're gonna do all the things, and they were slotted for like 46 conventions that year. I did about 30 or so, and I tapped out because I was just.
Jeez.
Yeah, and here's the con of that. Yeah, there's too many. There's too many cons. Don't do that. Don't do that. But the pro of that is that I found out which cons worked for me and which didn't. So the next year I was able to plan accordingly. And so the next year, instead of 30, I did 14, which is still probably too much. Still too much, but I did 14. But they were the 14 that I had narrowed down. I was like, okay, these are the ones where I got a little bit of return on investment. So when you're doing conventions, don't go there and be like, well, it's a great convention, but I'm not going to make any money because it's all going to cancel out when it comes to the travel, the hotel, and it's like, you made $0. I did that once. Did a New York. New York is extremely expensive. Extremely so. Yeah. I pretty much ended up negative after the hotel, the booth, which was like $1,000 for the booth. Yeah.
Too much work.
It's too much work. So yeah, so and then go by genre. There are so many conventions that are by genre. Romance Writers has their own conventions. Fantasy has their own, sci-fi conventions. You name it. So find the one. Mystery thrillers. Find the one you want. My advice is to start off small, local. Don't just be like, we're going to, it's my first book and I'm going to Worldcon.
Maybe don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that happen, and it was kind of like everybody walked past her going, "What?" She had her one book and her booth, and and she was at Worldcon. And I felt kind of a little bad for her, but because you have to bring like a pallet of books if you're going to do that. You just have one book, and then practice your spiel. Because my first couple of years, people would come up to me and ask me, "So what's your book about?" And I'd be like, well, if you read the back. No.
You're holding it up. Yeah. That's not good. You're not going to sell anybody on that.
Yeah. And make sure you have twice as many book ones if you have a series. Yeah. If you have like me, I have like a 6-book series. Yeah. I'm taking like 10 or 15 copies of each book, but book one, I'm adding an extra 10 or 15. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to get book one. They're like, okay. I'm at the point now where I don't have to do that. When I was like, this is a 6-book series. And it was like, okay, we'll take all 6. Good.
Awesome.
Yes. And
I have a curious and kind of fun question of, does your spiel ever leak into like your daily life conversations? Because I ask because I work in a handshaky community service kind of job, and I have to tell my job over and over and again. And the other day I was like at drinks with my girlfriend, and one of her friends was like, what do you do? And it was the spiel. And she was like, that was so rehearsed. Does that ever happen to you where you're like in a normal setting and you just launch into author pitch mode?
Crazily enough, no. I actually, and I've heard people do that. It's like, yeah, they immediately, what do you do? And I was like, oh, because I wear so many hats. It's like, what do you do? It's like, well, it depends on what you need. Like, I have an author service. What do you want to? Do you want to know about that? Do you want to know about, consultations on your book, or or do you want to just know about my stuff? I can tell you about my stuff. So I've learned how to kind of separate all. I don't know how many heads I have now. I lost count.
You're a hydra. When one gets chopped, another one grows back.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that is a good skill to have. You're juggling a lot of balls, and you're doing a good job doing it. Thank you so much for the advice, for the tips, the tricks, and for coming on the show. We have about 6 minutes left, so before I gotta call this for the day, I would like to ask for the readers and everybody else out there who might be wanting to become a reader of Maquel A. Jacobs. I know you have the new core book coming out, but you said there is 5 others because you are a maniac. What other books can we expect in the near future? And, where can people find you? Where can people follow you? All that good stuff.
Oh, my. Well, you can actually purchase my books on maquelajacob.com. I just got that figured out. So that's done. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. I have a Discord, and they're all under Maquel AJ1. So that's all those. I even have a Tumblr, but I don't go on Tumblr. Yeah. And this, so book 5 of Core is coming out on the 20th. Book 6, I'm hoping to get out this summer. I also have book 4 of my Blood Saga series, which is my Alien Vampires. I'm going to start writing that this summer, and that's going to have an October release date. And oh gosh, I have another collection of shorts coming out. Nice. I do have a collection of shorts out from the Curve universe. It's called Along the Curve. So that one's out. And oh gosh, another double novella. It's of a religious vein, which is going to be interesting. It's sci-fi, but it's got religion, so I'm not sure how I'm going to market that one. Yeah. I guess so it's very interesting, that one. And then I have one, it's also of the Curve vein. I only have a chapter 2 left of that one, so that should be coming out in the summer as well. I told you 5 books
right
before
on.
the year's out. And that one, it's a take on the Olympics. So once we have like hybrid humans and the whole 9 yards, the Olympics kind of changes. Because now you have like half alien humans, and they have more, they might have superpower, they might have, enhanced abilities. So what do the Olympics look like at this point? So,
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So I'm focused on the swimming because I love swimming. So the swimmers and the divers. So that this one's on that vein of all the new swimmers with world records and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's a lot. Well, that does sound like a lot, doesn't it?
It sounds awesome. We're really excited to see some more from you. And thank you so much for bringing all this awesome genre bending, gender bending, race bending fiction into the world. You are an incredible force in the literary community. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming on the show too, Michael.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this was fun.
It was great chatting with you.
Yeah.
I would also like to extend, our usual thanks to Special Brews. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thank you to Cascade Writers for letting us be your podcast. And thank you to all the listeners, obviously, for making this all, worthwhile and very fulfilling and awesome, and helping us amplify the voices of the great literary minds and authors out there, including Maquel A. Jacobs. Follow her on all the stuff. Go to her website. Buy all her books because they're awesome. And, if you like the series, she's going to write like 90 more of them next year, probably. So you should definitely get on that grave train. Thank you so much, Maquel. Do you want to say anything else to sign off?
No, just yes. Read all the books. Reading is fun, and you get to explore new worlds.
I agree. Do that. Read every single book that has ever existed. All right. Thank you so much, Maquel. We'll see you. We'll see you in the future sometime, hopefully.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.